Mike Sowden, thanks for being here.
Absolute pleasure, Brendan. It's great
Uh,
to be here.
can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
What a good question. I've no idea. I've spent 54 years trying to work that out. All I have are theories. Let me see. I am a nerd who grew up reading a lot of fiction and knew he wanted to be a writer at some point, but never knew how. So pre-internet, I wanted to be a writer, and I had no clue how to do that. So I worked in a pottery for 5 years, making handles for mugs. I worked on a fairground. I worked in insurance. I did all sorts of stuff. And then I decided I should give up on my dream of being a writer for a while and go and get a proper job. So I became an archaeologist, which is a career that's even less secure than being a writer. So I am no longer an archaeologist, but I learnt a lot studying archaeology, and from that, in particular, a love of the sciences. After archaeology, I became a travel writer, and then from travel writing, I learnt a love of the natural world and meeting people and just going out and seeing stuff. And now I write a science newsletter, and it's kind of an amalgam of all those things. But whether this truly reflects who I am, I've no idea. I've no idea who I am. I've no idea what I'm doing. But what I'm doing right now, I'm finding really fun.
That's perfect. Well, as you know, this is a podcast called My Favorite Things, and what are we really if not a collection of the things we love? So we'll talk about that a little bit. I do want to mention the name of your newsletter, which is Everything is Amazing, which is a Substack newsletter. And anyone who is starting, who even talks about starting a Substack, I say, go check out Everything is Amazing, because this is a person who is having an absolute blast doing it and finding things to write about just by following their curiosity and making it entertaining for the rest of us. So I'm going to stop praising you now because I know it makes you really uncomfortable.
Thank you. That's very kind, but I'm English, so part of me has literally just died as you said those things. But thank you. That was very kind. I am having fun, and I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't having fun, because obviously, why would I do this? It's not making me rich, Brendan, as you know. But no, I really feel like one of the things I've learnt being on Substack is that if you tackle any topic with bringing the right kind of energy to it, you can have a lot of fun. That fun can translate over to readers. They start having fun. And so it's important that you find something that you're enjoying, even if it's really niche. Mm-hmm. And you'll be really surprised if you just try it out and see how people respond. You'll be surprised what can become popular. Even the absolute drivel that I write can find an audience. So there's my message for everyone out there, my inspiring message.
I feel like it's like the promise of the very early internet, which was to connect you with people who had the same, interests and passions you do, however nerdy they are. And yeah. I always say now, I'm like, I never make fun of anything because it's probably somebody's kink. I don't even, there's probably some sort of weird back channel like porn thing about it, and I'm not even aware of it. And I'd like to not be, but it's like, you never know. It's out there. So
you never know.
Yeah.
The world is a very diverse place, and we're all very strange in our own special ways.
Yeah. Should we get started with your list of 5 things?
Sure.
Okay.
So my first one is a type of goat cheese called Halloumi. And Halloumi is a Cypriot cheese, and I grew up in Cyprus. So the history of Cyprus is basically until 1974. Cyprus was essentially Greek, and then Turkey invaded the north of Cyprus and split the island. And now the north of Cyprus It's like 50 years later, which blows my mind. The north of Cyprus is the Republic of, no, let me get this right. The Northern Territory of Cyprus, I think it is, and it's not recognised by the EU, whereas the south of Cyprus is the Republic of Cyprus, and that is recognised by the EU. And so there's a Greek side and a Turkish side. Now, when all this happened, my father was in the Royal Air Force, and he was seconded over from the British Royal Air Force into the United Nations and sent to Cyprus as part of the peacekeeping force. So we went in 1975. So this was a year after the division of Cyprus, and we stayed until 1979. And that was when I was 5 years old. Yes, 6 years old, 1971. 5 years old. 4.5 till 8.5, I think it was. Yeah. Math is not my strong point. You might be able to. Why am I writing a science newsletter? It's ridiculous. But basically, that's why I was there. That's why I grew up in a school where half the kids were speaking Greek, and I still love the sound of Greek. And I now relearning Greek as an adult, which is what I'm doing at the moment. I've got the sounds in my head, and I can say the sounds. So it's really interesting. I'm not having to learn the sounds. I'm having to learn the words, but the sounds are all there. But I've got a real love for Cyprus and Greece as well, and just everything Mediterranean, that side of the Mediterranean. And one of those things is halloumi. Halloumi is it's a cheese that has weird properties in that you can fry it and it won't dissolve into a gloopy mess. It won't, deform and then form a kind of a disgusting puddle, and then you can scrape up the puddle and it's kind of tasty, but it looks just like a splat. It's not like that at all. It will fry like chicken, so that you can have just. I mean, I'm sure you've had halloumi, so I know you're a fan of cheese. So you've tried halloumi.
I've prepared it, and like basically when I think of when I'm frying it in a pan, I'm like, this is pretty much how Spam works, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I love fried halloumi.
It's amazing, and it tastes wonderful. It's squeaky, which is the thing that always surprises people when they first have it. It's like, what? Something weird just happened with my teeth. Oh yeah, it's fine. It's supposed to do that. And you can eat it like if you're going for a vegetarian meal. You can eat it like it's the meat part of your dish, and it works perfectly. And it's a reminder. It's one of the tastes of Cyprus for me. So I feel like it taught me the power of how a taste can trigger a memory, because I can eat that and I can very clearly remember things about Cyprus, just kind of flashes, because I was kind of too young really to have any strong memories. But I can eat that, and I can eat calamari, which is like fried squid, and just for a second, when that taste hits my taste buds, I've got the memory. I've got those memories, and they're really, really sharp and clear in my mind. And then it's kind of, goes back into the fog that is being an adult, and all the worries crowd in again. But just, tastes kind of remind you of parts of your life. They're little moments of time travel, and halloumi is one of those.
Yeah. I'm hearing like a little, I think it's your hand on the table might be making a noise.
Oh. Right. Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Probably me moving around a bit too.
So that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll chop it out.
Okay.
So, have you been back to Cyprus as an adult?
I have. I went in 2006 with a friend, and we went to the south of the island. When my dad was stationed in Cyprus, it was in Nicosia, the capital city, that is now the last divided city in Europe after Berlin unified. So it's the last divided city in Europe, and it's called Lefkosia on the south and North Nicosia in the north. But back then it was just called Nicosia. So that we were in the north of the island, But when I went back in 2006, we stayed in the RAF base. I was there with a friend, and his brother is still in the RAF. So we stayed in the south of the island, and we did some exploring around there. And I loved it. It was just, it wasn't like, you know, those times when you go somewhere and it's been a long time since you've been there and everything's smaller because you're kind of, especially if you're there as a kid. I went back to where I grew up in south of England when I was like 12, and everything was just so small. It was like this pond, and I remember it being a lake, and it's just a pond. But Cyprus wasn't anything like that. Everything just felt like everything was the right size and it had the right kind of feel, and I just wanted to keep exploring forever. So that makes me think I really want to go back to Cyprus and try living there for a few months.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've had that same thought recently, but not about anywhere as cool as Cyprus, just the places I grew up. For whatever reason. Oh, just like the little towns in southwest Iowa and the Midwest. I wonder what that's like now. Probably much different, much different than it was. But yeah,
there's just something so different about staying in a place long enough so you can see the cycles of life of the people who live there, and just longer than a few weeks, just seeing the seasons move a bit. I just really feel I spent 2 months in Corfu. So Corfu is Greece, and that was after I'd sold my family home, and that was me kind of just recovering from that process of selling my family home. But it was 2 months of just renting out an Airbnb and just kind of being part of the place and just being on that kind of transition zone between, well, I'm obviously a tourist, but I've been here for weeks and weeks and people know my face and I'm starting to recognize. And, I walk down the road and that dog that's in the farm will come out with its tail wagging because it recognizes me, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there's something really nice about being there long enough for that to happen. And I started seeing the weather was changing as well. I was there in Corfu, October, November, and at the beginning of November, the weather changes in the Mediterranean. It's kind of famous with sailors. It changes pretty much in about 3 days. And while I was there, all the shopkeepers knew this was going to happen, so the entire place switched over from tourist mode to batten down for the winter mode. So all the restaurants closed, and I walked down to get my morning kebab, and everything was shut. It was like, what the hell? And that was the reason. They knew that in a few days' time, all these storms would come in. And they were right. So it was really fun seeing that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of me is always like, I don't want to wreck it, the memory I have of it. So I definitely don't want to go someplace that I've been for like a long period of time. Like, let's stop in. We can go to that restaurant we like and this other place, and then we can check out and not ruin it.
But it's kind of, when you go into a restaurant and you had a really, really nice dish there, it was like amazing, and you're so torn between, I want to have that same dish again because I know it'll be really good, and yeah, but if it was really good, surely I should try something else. But then it's that feeling, and I feel that with travel all the time. It's like I want to go back to somewhere, but I want to find a way that it's a bit different. And I'm sure there can be a sweet spot that you go back somewhere, but you haven't gone back in exactly the same way. I'm sure that's true for everywhere. But it's like if I think to myself, I'm avoiding this because I'm scared of it not being, what it was, then I've got to accept that it's not going to be. I've got to say it's not going to be. But I can help that along. I can help that process along by maybe I can even be a bit different. It's like if I went back, I wouldn't go back to the village I was in Corfu. But if I did, I would go back like, oh, I'm going to be a travel writer this time. So I'm going to sit in bars and just write about people and be really annoying.
That's what we all should do. Yeah. Yeah. So number 2 on your list is the John Williams soundtrack to the box mega office flop Raise the Titanic.
Oh, boy.
I have no idea this film existed, and I kind of did a little bit of research before we got on here, and it's a Clive Cussler book with Dirk Pitt. So then I ended up on like the Clive Cussler Wikipedia page. It appears, I could be wrong on this, but it appears there's only 2 Clive Cussler books that were made into movies, and both of them did not do very well. And this is one of them that did quite poorly. And the producer apparently said some years later, after the film had come out and not done well, that it would have been easier to lower the Atlantic.
Isn't that a great quote? I love it so much for that. But it's just, Lou Grade, he was a legendary producer at this point, and that's the film that drove him out of wanting to produce films, because he was so disillusioned by it. And the making of it was so many things went wrong. They built this enormous model of the Titanic, and this was 5 years before Rob Ballard and his team discovered the Titanic. The National Geographic backed, I think it was backed by Nat Geo, but they discovered that the Titanic was in 2 pieces. So at this time there was a question mark whether it was in 1 piece or 2 pieces. It hadn't been found. So they went with 1 piece, and they went with, okay, well, like in the book, it's all in 1 piece, so it could be brought up to the surface in some kind of state. So the book, the Clive Cussler thriller, is enjoyably ridiculous. I'm not a Clive Cussler fan, but he just had this. I mean, have you read any of the Dirk Pitt books?
I haven't. No.
Well, it's just kind of like, it's kind of a James Bond like character with like, you know, underwater archaeology stuff and lots of very, very nautical kind of James Bond like character. So it's just like Secret Service, you know, but just fueled by stories that are kind of powered by wonder, you know, so that the core of the story, there's always something very interesting in a way that I would find interesting for writing a story in my newsletter. I go, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. And then Clive Cussler writes it. And if you're a Clive Cussler fan, I'm not going to slag you off, because he very much has a huge audience. But I'm not I see them as kind of like fast-paced thrillers. They're not kind of, they're not science writing. They're a bit kind of like, it's like a Dan Brown plot line. So it's something that's got an interesting hook, and then it's somewhat ludicrous, but in a somewhat entertaining way. And the Raise the Titanic, the plot line is that the Titanic went down with this mysterious radioactive isotope on it called bisanium. And bisanium can be used to make a bomb that puts nuclear bombs to shame. And so everyone wants to get hold of what's on the Titanic. So the Americans decide to raise the Titanic to get hold of it. You know, it's a bit of a Cold War kind of plot line. And that's kind of the story. And the weird thing is that around that, it's like this very pulpy plot line suddenly started attracting all these really high-profile actors. I mean, it's got like Jason Robards and Sir Alec Guinness is in it at one point, right at the end, almost like a throwaway character. You know, it's just absurd. So you've got these, you know, proper kind of thespians in it, and a lot of the work that's done with the visual effects was really, for the time, really impressive. And what they did for the actual raising the Titanic was they built this model that was 15 meters long, and it was too big to be in a like a flotation tank to film. So they actually went out to sea, and they raised it up at sea on a very calm day. And so when you see the scene of it coming up, which now kind of looks, you've got to have a certain level of suspended disbelief to watch that scene, because it's slowed down, and the water is like, the water is just telling you that it's a model. It's just ridiculous. But the sound, the way that the sounds are being used, the sounds kind of try to convey that it's a massive thing coming up, and they do a really good job of that. And that scene is I still find it quite impressive. And the film itself is filled with some really, really impressively done scenes, but the filming of it was just kind of cursed. The final scene, just to completely spoil the film for everyone, if you want to watch the film, stop listening. The Byzanium is not on the Titanic. It's actually buried in a churchyard in Ireland. And so they filmed the final scene where they decide to not dig up the Byzanium because it would wreck the world order, and they just leave it in a grave in a churchyard in Ireland. That's the scene with Alec Guinness. The day before they were going to film that scene, a massive storm went through, and the church they were using was completely destroyed. It was a real church, but it was destroyed. So they had to move the filming of that scene. I think they moved it to somewhere in the States. So it's like, and they had to just extend the filming by so many months because of a bit of a natural disaster, and all these kinds of things that kind of happened with the film. So it's a bit of a cursed production. But one of the things that I really appreciate is the soundtrack, which is by John Williams, and now it's recognised. It's recognised as some of his best work. I mean, John Williams has made some of the most iconic themes for movies of the last 50 years, and for me, this one is right at the top. It's better than Jurassic Park. It's better than, it just kind of, when I say better, it's obviously different, but it has a soul that is just all of its own, and it's a very, it's very moving, but it's very kind of, it's telling a kind of a sad story. It's a very emotional soundtrack, and there's also a scene where there's a piece of music that is played while after the Titanic has been raised. You have Dirk Pitt wandering round inside it, looking up at the ruins of the famous staircase in the Titanic, and then he goes out and he goes to the flagpole and he puts up the original flag of the Titanic. And there's a piece of music that plays with that, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And for that scene, for that whole scene, they actually bought a Greek ship, and they kind of distressed it, and they rebuilt the insides to look like the Titanic. So again, it's like they spent millions on doing that one scene and using it for some outside filming. And then all of that went into the film, and then it bombed. It just completely bombed at the box office. It cost 35 million to make, and the model of the Titanic was 7 million all in itself, and the film made 7 million. So, but the film is actually on YouTube. I noticed if you type "Raise the Titanic" into YouTube, I think the rights have lapsed, and it's just on there, so you can watch the entire thing
for free.
So, yeah.
So were you like 18 or 19 when this film comes out?
Yeah, I was, and I don't know when I first saw it, but it really made me, watching the entire film, it made me fall in love with underwater stuff. I know I've ended up writing a lot about that in my newsletter recently, because I'm fascinated by, this 71% of our planet that we hardly ever think about. And all these things that are kilometers under the sea that we only have a very kind of very sketchy kind of idea of what's really down there. I recently wrote about the tallest waterfall in the world, which is an underwater waterfall, and it's cold water underneath warm water that is falling over a cliff near Iceland, and it's like 3 times, 4 times higher than the Burj Dubai. It's just insane. And these are all things that are under our oceans, and we never think about them. And Race the Titanic was one of those films that made me think, wow, this is a whole new world. It's like, in a way, it's like going into space, but it's right here. It's just all these alien things that we know nothing about. So yeah.
This is like sort of related, but I used to work with this guy who would every once in a while he'd find some photo of some crazy underwater deep sea ocean creature, and it would be crazy looking something or other, and I just remember he would type in his emails, "I've said it before and I'll say it again, fuck the ocean." For some reason that always pops up in my head when something crazy like that, and I think it's just his way of saying I don't ever want to go down there.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. It's like, the idea of the sublime, the thing that calls mountain climbers. This idea of going to a place that you're in awe, but you're terrified as well. You're in that place of just like, oh, wow, and that's the ocean for me. The idea of going down in a submersible just fills me with horror, but I'm still drawn by it. Yeah.
Right. So the soundtrack is the thing you listed. Are you still have you been listening to the soundtrack kind of throughout your life? And like did you turn it on the last few months? And what situation is it when are you just like you making dinner, or are you like need to get in a mood for writing, or are you like trying to run fast for training for a marathon or something, or like what's going on when you turn the soundtrack on?
Well, the soundtrack was really, the main theme has been on YouTube for a long time, and I've listened to various versions of that, but I recently, because of the popularity of movie themes, you've got small orchestras who have started doing versions of popular themes. So like such and such does, Berlin Philharmonic does the theme to ER or something like that, and those things get huge amounts of listens on YouTube, and it's a really great way of promoting an orchestra, but also, they start releasing albums of them now. And what I saw quite recently, about a year ago, was I think it's a Polish orchestra who have recorded the entire Race the Titanic soundtrack. And so it's all on there because there hasn't ever been, as far as I'm aware, an official Race the Titanic soundtrack released by, in association with John Williams. So I discovered that, and I started listening to that while I was walking. And I've also discovered, in a weird way, it kind of suits my diet of music for going to the gym. So sometimes when I'm on the way to the gym, I'll want something that's really high energy and is kind of like, I'll just slap on some Sia, or just something that's just almost absurdly positive and, let's go, all that kind of stuff. And other times I'll want something that's a bit more kind of quieter and more reflective. And this has become one of them. So it's like it puts me into a thinking mood, but into a kind of I think the mood it puts me into is kind of reconnecting with various parts of my life. So it's kind of a soundtrack. I don't want to say it's a soundtrack for my life, but it's a soundtrack that reminds me of various things in my life. And it's very good for putting me into a place where I'm thinking about a story that I'm putting together. And with my stories, I'm generally pulling on threads and trying to knit them together in some interesting way. And so it's like, this makes it easier to do that. So it's kind of it's a thinking soundtrack for me.
Yeah. You put it on like repeat when you're writing. Just like keep it going for a couple hours.
Yeah, that kind of thing, and it can be really good for that. Yeah, and sometimes I'll just want sound of a coffee shop. It's just like white noise, but sometimes I'll want music like that. But it's not intrusive as well. If
Yeah.
I find, I don't know about you, but I can't listen to music with lyrics when I'm writing. Can you? No?
Yeah,
You
it's
kind of.
sometimes if it's really familiar, but like not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want to be trying to listen to new music and try to come up with words in my own head. It's kind of difficult, you know. Then I unintentionally end up stealing lyrics for what I'm writing. I'm just
Right.
kidding. I don't do that. I don't. It would be a stretch.
Well,
Must-
that is something I do have a bit of a fear of. Reading
Yeah.
so much, I see part of my job as just I need to read all the things, and after a while, if you read so much that you forget what you've read,
Yeah.
I'm always terrified of that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
were gonna say like you accidentally stole some Kendrick Lamar lyrics in one of your pieces, and
Well, that too, but
that
you know,
happens, right?
we all do that. Yeah,
But don't we all? Who among us has not?
yeah, yeah. Well, if we all say it, then then we can do a lawsuit together. A
Yes.
counter lawsuit together.
Yes, it belongs to no one. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Yeah. Number 3 is this book, Microadventures, by this guy you and I both know named Alastair Humphreys,
Yes.
who's a countryman of yours.
And
Swell
Al
guy.
Humphreys, he's also how I know you. So
Is that how we got introduced?
he was
Or you
mentioning
found-
you, and I clicked through, and I started reading you because of, I think it was the time when you met him. I think he came over and you met him, and there was a photo of you having a meal together, and that was
burritos at El Taco de Mexico in Denver. Yeah.
right.
Yep. Boy, that was a
Yep.
good one. I missed that burrito. So did you know him before this book came out, or what what's the...
When the book came out, I didn't. I met him a few years later. I met him at the launch of one of his later books, which is My Midsummer Morning, about his jaunt across Spain. And the thing was, I hadn't met him, but I knew him when he was actually doing that walk across Spain. So for anyone who hasn't read it, it's a really fun book. He sets himself the challenge of going in the footsteps of Laurie Lee, a writer in I think Laurie Lee did it in the 1930s, where he basically busked his way across Spain, and was earning the money to eat from playing his violin. And Al tried to do the same, and by Al's description, he has terrible musical talent. So he learned to play this violin in 6 months, and the film of him doing it is wonderful, because it's just he's really struggling. By the time he's ready to fly out to Spain and do this walk, trying to earn enough money by busking to get enough food to eat, he's admitting to himself that he's not very good at doing it, but he does it anyway, which is fantastic. And the film, watching it, kind of makes me cringe now, because it's so brave to stand in a square with your violin, knowing that you're struggling, and then just to play. And when he gets his first euro, when somebody gives him his first euro, he is just overcome. And isn't that the feeling that we all want from that kind of adventure?
Yeah.
But I was staying in Portugal for 2 months at the time, and he set off from Vigo in the north west of Spain, that was literally I think it's 20 miles away from where I was. And I knew that he'd just arrived. I didn't know why he was there, but I knew he just arrived, and I sent him an email saying, can I pop over and buy you a coffee? And he sent me an email back saying, "Thanks, Mike. That'd be great, but I'm afraid it's against the rules." And he never told me what that meant. And from that, I just thought, well, I was there with my partner, and I said to my partner, well, it sounds like he thinks I'm a dick. Well, that's not very nice, is it? But then the book came out, and I understood. He didn't want to, get the help of anyone. He kind of didn't want to meet anyone he knew, and he didn't want to rely on anyone buying him anything. It was 100% him, and I respect that now. But at the time, it was like,
yeah. I think the violin's one of the worst instruments to suck at for other people.
Yeah.
If you're not good at playing the violin, it's excruciating to
I played it at school. I was
Did
awful.
You? Oh.
I did. I was. Yeah. They had a thing where they decided which musical instrument you would be assigned by handing round the mouthpiece of a flute, and if you could make a noise with it, you would get assigned the flute. And if you couldn't, you'd get whatever else there was. And I couldn't get a bloody noise out of this thing. I was like blowing away, trying to get something, because I really wanted to learn to play the flute. But I couldn't make a sound. And so they put me on violin, and I hated it.
They did the bass drum. Was that the last thing handed around? Or what? It's just like, that's super chill. You just hit it.
I would, anything else. I would love to play the bass drum. But but I got the violin, and I was not happy. So me watching that film just makes me cringe now, and I know how hard it is to learn the violin. But Al did it, and he earned enough money to pay for his food, and that's kind of Al. He's just kind of like, okay, I'm going to set myself this ridiculous challenge. And then my superpower is I'm going to do it. That's Al's superpower. It's just like where the rest of us would successfully talk ourselves out of it. Maybe you wouldn't. I think you have this superpower as well. But I would have talked myself out well before he got on the plane. And he left his, and he really committed. He left his credit cards behind. He had no way out. So it's like land, play the violin, and that way you won't starve.
I remember there's like some part where he finds a ketchup packet on the ground, and he's really excited because it's like 5 calories or something like that. He just eats it. Yeah. I think that's what it is. But yeah, he so Microadventures was so Al was right out of, I think he was 23, bicycled around the world for 4 years. And then I believe the timeline so he sort of became known or famous for these big adventures that he did, like walking across India or like backpacking across Iceland or rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, and the bike trip, of course. And I don't know if Microadventures coincided with him having kids, but it was sort of him talking about how you can find adventure in these small ways near where you live or wherever. And I think the phrase I always think of when he says Microadventures is go sleep on a hill. And that's sort of what he does. The book, I'm not sure what year it came out, but you know when you encountered the book, obviously. When was that?
Oh, I think it was actually a couple of years after it came out. I was rediscovering my love of going camping at this time, but I wasn't that keen on going to campsites. I felt like I loved going into the outdoors, but I really didn't like that feeling at the end of it where you had to fit into this very rigid structure of where you had to sleep. And I felt like, sometimes it'd be really fun just to kind of sleep under a tree or whatever, and that felt like, that book felt like giving me permission. And so I kind of really, I really loved the message of it, which was also, tying in with my growing awareness of how difficult it was to sleep outdoors in England, because England is, I'm now in Scotland. I'm living on the west coast of Scotland, and there's a thing called right to roam. where essentially you can go anywhere as long as it's not, excuse me, as long as it's not, private property as such. It allows you to just roam as much as you like, and essentially, if you leave no trace behind you, you can just bed down anywhere. And in England, that is technically illegal except for one place, which is Dartmoor. And recently, a landowner who was a hedge fund manager went after that rule and tried to have it overturned, and he was defeated in court, which was a great thing to see. But it's so difficult to go wild camping. And when I say wild camping, you can just literally be going along with your bivy bag and just waiting for night to fall and just bedding down where you are. And then you get up in the morning and nobody could tell that you've been there. That sometimes is wild camping. And it should be a thing that in England that a lot more people are doing because they want to. And I think it's it can feel like a more of a socially weird thing than maybe it should be. And I don't like that feeling at all. And also in England, let's face it, the wildlife is not going to attack you. You might get kind of like slightly chewed by a badger or something. That's about it. We don't have bears. The worst we have are ticks and midges, especially up here in Scotland. And if you can stay safe from them, that's pretty much it. So it should be ideal for this kind of wild camping, but it's not really. It is a thing, and people do it. And Microadventures has really helped people do it, but it's not as much of a thing as I would like to see, really.
Yeah, it's a very few countries have that same rule. I know Norway does, and maybe a couple other Scandinavian. Norway's is like you have to be, I think, 150 meters from a building, but other than that, it's wide open.
Okay.
Whether or not it's private property, it's pretty great. But yeah.
Excuse me.
Did you end up like camping with Al at some point?
Yes. It was interesting because there was a bunch of about 30 of us, I think, and we all went to Hathersage, the edge of the Peak District in Yorkshire, where it was where Alpkit's headquarters is. Alpkit being the company that does all this wonderful gear, including bivy bags. My bivy bags are at Alpkit, and I went and it was for the launch of My Midsummer Morning, and so it was in an evening, and then after the event, Al led about 30 of us up into some woods, and then we just kind of had a big fire and we sat around talking, and it was really nice. But it was interesting at the end of it because all of a sudden, kind of like we were talking about, okay, we should all sort of bed down really and find somewhere to sleep, and then it's like, where's Al? Yeah, he's gone. That's what he does. He's gone to find his special place, and we'll never find out where that is. So that was kind of fun to see. But and then I saw on social media that he got up at like 5 o'clock the next morning and caught a train. And but it was
because he had to chauffeur his kids to school, probably.
Yes, it's probably that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, number 4. Electric blankets.
Oh, you see, this one makes me sound really old, and it's a bit in contrast to number 3, which is all about sleeping outdoors and seeing the outdoors as this wonderful.
Tough segue here.
I know, but in a way it isn't, because a thing that I write about in my newsletter is this incredible rise in the ways that solar power can be used. And one of the things I wrote about recently was a Glasgow teenager who perfected a design and submitted it for a competition, and it was designed for a solar blanket for homeless people. And essentially it it's a blanket. It charges up during the day. It has a solar cell, and the solar cell charges, and then at night you turn it on, you wrap it around yourself, it keeps you warm. I mean, that's a fabulous thing for everyone who's outdoors, as well as people who are outdoors because they don't have an indoors to go to at that time. That is a wonderful thing, and it's kind of an extension of electric blankets, and electric blankets have been around for ages. And I'm now at the age now, I'm in Scotland, and it gets cold in the winter up here. And so having an electric blanket on when you're in a room and it's bloody cold and you don't want to turn the heating on because electric bills are kind of painful at the moment. But you're going to bed and it's just nice to turn on an electric blanket and get in. And, it's just, there are a few things that are in life that are just quite as welcoming as an electric blanket that warms your ass. Let's face it, it's a real deep human experience that, you know what I mean? It's just,
Yep.
But
Yep.
Yeah, it's really nice, but it's a reminder for me of a technology that has wider applications, and I'm interested to see them happening now, because I remember when I started getting into outdoor gear, you have these little hand warmers, these little kind of gel packs with a little button in it, like a piezoelectric button. You crack the button and the whole thing goes solid, but it warms up massively.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like, it warms your hands for like 20 minutes. And then you reset it by putting it into boiling water, and it goes liquid again. And then you can do that again the next time. And now I'm thinking, why haven't we had the equivalent of that, but with a solar cell? There's so many applications of solar cells that are coming out for, gadget chargers and so on. But what about warmth? I'm sure there is stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff out there that I'm just unaware of. But I would have thought that something that just kind of uses a solar cell to warm you up. I think we're well overdue some applications of that. Just like an inner liner for your jacket. Just imagine in the morning, you could put a bag like this, just like a gel. You stuff it inside your boots, and then you turn it on for 10 minutes. And then when you get into your boots, when you're camping, you go out in the morning, your boots are freezing cold, and there may even be something in them, but it's just putting your feet into warm boots in the morning. I don't understand why that hasn't been a thing. Maybe it is.
That sounds quite luxurious in my experience, absolutely. I gotta say. But yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about? I'm thinking of electric blankets as a creative work, and like who invented the electric blanket?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. This is a rabbit hole I should really go down, because I feel strongly about it. So yeah, I should get writing about that.
Heated gloves are like the big thing, or were the big thing in the U.S. a few years ago.
Isn't there something like on bikes as well, where you have heated parts of handlebars on bikes?
Oh, maybe. The thing I've seen is the big muffs that go way over your. It's like a box almost of insulated material. I don't know that they're electric. I think they just like block enough wind to make it like its own little microclimate in there. But yeah. Number 5. This is such a big jump from 3 to 4 to 5. Number 5 is distant lights seen at night. And first thing I thought of is God, never mind. I'm just gonna have to delete this. I can't even remember the name of the book now. Antoine Saint-Exupéry's book, the flying book. Oh my God, Wind, Sand, and Stars. That's the first thing I thought of was Wind, Sand, and Stars, and how they were doing early mail flights from Europe to Africa, and basically they don't know where anything is, and there's nothing transmitting anything, so they're trying to figure out where the coast is by seeing lights from a plane, like Like, oh,
Wow.
where are the cities? Where are we gonna land? Which is wild. But yours is completely different. So how it makes you feel is what you're talking about.
Well, you describing that, I'm sure that's a book that would make me feel that. I mean, what I feel when I see Distant Lights is, I mean, I remember one example in particular, and it goes back to sleeping outdoors. It was me and my bivy bag on, and when was it? It was like February, I think it was, on a beach in North Yorkshire, and it was very cold and rainy. The next morning, but the night before, when I bedded down, it was very, very clear, and it was absolutely starless. And I could see the next town up the coast, and I could see it very, very clearly, and all the lights just kind of necklaced all the way up to the cliffs, I was just, I just watched, I just sat there and watched it for hours in a way. In a way, I'm used to kind of watching stars. It's just that kind of. I was watching it in exactly the same way I watch stars, and I was just feeling this much the same thing, which is like, wow, there's so much out there to experience and to learn and to and to just kind of go and see. But the thing about that was the first time I started thinking about what Rebecca Solnit talks about. When she talks about the blue of distance. So when you're looking out and you're seeing distant mountains and they're slightly hidden from you by that kind of fading, that blue fading that you see because of the atmosphere and the way. And it's a very appealing thing, and it pulls you towards them, and you kind of think, I want to climb that mountain, and I want to go in those mountains as well, and I just want to keep going, and I want to see what's over those mountains. And her point is that we usually interpret that as, oh, I need to immediately go and do that, instead of enjoying the feeling itself. So she's saying, when you have a desire to do something, appreciate that feeling for what it is. And it doesn't mean that you immediately have to go and conquer the thing that is calling to you. You can just say, the experience of it calling to you is a thing in itself that you can appreciate, and it can make you a more hopeful and interested person in the world. And I feel that when I look at Distant Lights at night, because I think, all those people, because those lights are created by people, all those people, all their stories. And then it's like, oh, well, what am I doing with, what am I doing, and how can I maybe kind of like steer myself towards learning a few of those stories? So it's, in a way, it's like the same feeling I get as going into a library. It's like all these books, I could read any of them. That it's kind of, it could be frustrating to me, the knowledge that I'm never going to read all of them. But having the choice is a really powerful and empowering thing, because it means, oh, I get to choose to do all these cool things. I can't do all of them, but I do get to choose something that's really cool. And it means that there's no, in a way, it means there's no time to waste. But it's also, that feeling itself is a thing I can appreciate as myself now. And it can make me a better person. It can make me a person who isn't going, oh, everything's boring. Well, no, there's so much out there. And I feel like I'm very much a person who will go to their deathbed having exactly the same number of books to read as I do now. I just...
Well, I think you'll have more. I think you can do better.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
This also makes me feel like how maybe you and I both dream up book ideas. Like,
yes,
I'm enjoying the blue of distance right now. I don't have to go over there and write the book. I'm just enjoying dreaming it up right now.
Yeah, it's great. All the possibility can be so intoxicating.
Mm-hmm.
And then and at some point reality kicks in, and that could be fun too. But yeah, I am a bit of a dreamer, and I think that can be there's positives and negatives to that, but yeah.
For sure. I wondered if you have a similar when you talk about the, what you said in your email was look at all these new places visibly inhabited by all these interesting strangers. Crack on. Then it made me think of being in a place like Hong Kong, where it's so much more densely populated than anywhere in America, I believe. But like looking up at these extremely tall apartment buildings with all these windows in them and knowing how many people were in those buildings in just like the, 1 block radius of that city compared to almost anywhere in the US, or I mean, really even probably the UK, right? Like London doesn't have super tall buildings and like the density, but like how many lives are packed into those spots compared to what we think of as, urban density here. Do you have a similar reaction to that sort of thing?
I do, and I it's also, these people are living lives in such different ways, and there's all sorts of, you can be kind of, you can be a bit kind of I don't know how to describe it, but you can look at these things and think, what can I learn from this for my own benefit? Which is a bit kind of predatorial in a way. It's like, what can I take away from this that I can turn into a buzzword and sell a book on? No, that's not a good way. But everyone kind of does that. They're always kind of like, what lesson can I learn from this? But also you can just appreciate that other human beings are living lives in very different ways to you. And this is one of the things I learned from travel writing. There are the things that unite people worldwide, and I honestly think one of them is that people are generally just decent worldwide. 90-something% of people just want to live their life without getting into too much trouble and strife. And another thing is like humor is a really interesting one. People laugh, people laugh in much the same way. The way the joke may be different, and the stuff around the humor itself may be different. Somebody you can see a classic travel writer going somewhere, not being able to speak a language at all, and just goofing around, and a kid laughs. And then you think, that's what human beings do. They laugh. But I think one of the things that is different and is always really interesting is the way that people live their lives in ways that you kind of think, wow, how would I do that? I couldn't. I have no idea. People whose biology is different because they live at high altitudes. That's so interesting as well. People who have the, like the hunter's response to cold. And an example, there's a Finnish stunt woman that I watch her Instagram channel, and she says, and she did a video where she said, here in Finland we have this thing called Avanto, and basically she stood there in furs and real, proper cold weather stuff. Everything's snow around her. She's got an axe, and then she goes to the edge of a lake, and she just hacks away with this axe until there's a hole, and then she just jumps in it. And Avanto is this thing where it's like ice water swimming. And they just immerse themselves, just up to here, and they just splash around for a bit, and then they go indoors and get warm. And that's apparently normal. And that is not, I have people looking at me like I'm a lunatic when I say I'd like going in the sea for a dip here, which I do at certain times of the year. Cold water swimming, our mutual friend Anna is the expert on that, but throwing yourself in a lake that's iced over, it's just different ways of living. And it's just interesting. It's the stories, it's the stories. We were talking about this earlier, about the power of just writing something where you're telling a story that's from somewhere else, about somebody else. And that's the kind of travel writing I love, when you just learn, these people are living in a totally different way to me. they're still human beings, so we have that commonality, but they're just approaching their lives in such different ways. And I love that. I love learning that, and I now love learning the science around that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, what makes us swim in non-liquid bodies of water
Yeah.
versus liquid bodies of water that are very cold.
Yeah, and how human beings adapt to heat as well. There's been stuff recently, I don't know if you saw it, about sauna culture seems to help with cognitive health. It's like people who are really getting regular doses of really, really being in really hot places, really hot and steamy kind of rooms. It seems to be helping their brains. It's super interesting, all of it.
Man, you might have to build a sauna next, or there's not a big sauna culture where you live, as far as I know. But
there isn't.
Yeah,
there's not a big building houses that stay warm culture either, unfortunately. So
hence
we
the
need to work on
blankets.
that first.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Hence the electric blankets. Exactly.
Well, this has been super fun, Mike. Thanks for doing it.
Absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure.